And welcome, everybody. Good to see you. Hi, Mohammed. The game pin is at the very top of the screen. That's for Kaye. Hi, Rishbot. Hey, Com, everybody. In the United States, it's the 4th of July. In Pacific time zone, anyway. And that's meaningful to the U.S. And I'm grateful to have everybody here. All right, Frosty was watching some CBT Nuggets. Fantastic. Glad you're here. And Trevor's asking about, do I have any content coming up on NSX from VMware? I do not have that on my roadmap yet, but that is a possibility. It's 11:30 midnight in India. That's dedication. Glad you're here. Blendinator's in the house. Always good to see you, Dan. Chris is here. Welcome, welcome. Thank you, Blendinator. Chris, I had a great day so far. 4th of July, took a swim about an hour ago. Gonna have some food later with family. It's gonna be great. Last night went to a show, actually a concert with my son. It was amazing to be amongst people again, face to face. All right, Nick. Passed the CCNA on Friday. Boop, boop, boop. Congratulations, Nick. Way to go. All right. Pratik is saying, I see your tweets. First time live. Glad to have you here. Set your calendar for if you want to study every Saturday Pacific time at 10 a.m. I have my office hour on Discord. And then every Sunday, we have this quiz at 11 a.m. Pacific. Set your calendar. Join us for all of them. They're a lot of fun. All right, NJ Lightsabers passed the CCNA last Monday. Way to go. And Trevor's saying he's going through my VMware course now. I had so much fun making that data center virtualization VCP course at CBT Nuggets. It was a lot of fun. So hope you enjoy it. If you had half as much fun going through it as I had making it, we're all in for a real treat. It's fun. Andre is here from Singapore, 2 a.m. That's dedication. Glad you're here. Welcome, welcome. And Balahi's here. Hi, Balahi. And hi, Vicky's back. Always good to see Vicky. And right after, if you have a question for me, right after this live stream, we're going to jump into the Discord server for a few minutes. And I'll be there to answer questions. So if you want to ask a live question in Discord, we'll be in the CCNA voice room right after this live stream on YouTube. Feel free to join us. All right, Antonia is here. All right, thanks for everybody for showing up and being here. Let's see, what time is it? It is time to start. So we're going to start. If somebody comes late, if you take a moment and just jot down the pin number at the top, and it should be at the bottom of the screen. But if it's not for some reason during the game and somebody needs it, please encourage them to log in to kahoot.it or use the app and then use the pin code so they can join us live. All right, there is also, Pratik is asking about Discord. In this video description, and if you go down deep enough there's a link for Discord. So that's an easy way to find it. It's in all my videos. All right, Samuel's here. Okay, let's get this party started. Let me just do a quick. My eyes are all red from the pool. Let me just take a peek real quick. Yeah, still red. All right, here we go. Good luck, everybody. My name is Keith Barker. If this is our first time meeting, glad to get to know you a little bit better. This is a quiz on logging on with Cisco. And it has 8 questions. They're going to go pretty fast. Here's question number 1. After pressing enter, based on this diagram we're looking at, what is required for access? Sorry about that. I meant to adjust that sound earlier. All right, after pressing enter, what is required for access? And if it's any help for the group, when I see a question like this, I've got to think through it. Most of the things, if I'm not dealing with them like on a monthly basis, I need to take a moment and look through it. So after pressing enter, what is required? Let's just do a quick peek together at this output. So here's a username called Jim, privilege level 5, and has a MD5 hash password of GymPass. Okay, and when you create a local user like that, it's in the local database. So the local database of a router, you know what it is, or a switch, is the running config. And let me remove the, yeah, so it's running config. So that caught me a few decades ago when I was starting to learn all this, like, well, it's the local database. What do you mean the local database? Well, when you create a user in the running config on a router or switch, that's considered to be the local database for that router or switch. So this username is kept in the local database. That's going to help on a question coming up, by the way. Then there's the enable secret, which is required to get into privileged mode. And then there's the enable password, which it will never, these days, it'll never be used, because if you have a enable secret configured and enable password, to get into privilege mode, it's always going to be the enable secret, and the enable password isn't used. There may be some corner cases with, ROM-mon and things like that, but for the current world, it's never used. And then if we went out of privilege mode, so we went from 15 down to 1, which is what disable does. So that prompt is user mode, also privilege level 1. We typed in who just for grins. In packet tracer, the who command isn't there. You just show users, same thing. Shows who's connected. So show users says that on line console 0, Jim is currently logged in. So if Jim types in enable, what he's asking to do is go back to level 15, which is going to require our enable secret, which is Cisco secret, because he's not logging on. He's just moving from level 1 to level 15. So hopefully the answer with enable secret is absolutely correct, because it's true. All right, and that is the enable secret. Good job. Moving on. Here we go. Question number 2 of 8. Again, so good to have you. Multiple select. Double points. And here it is. Which of the following are true based on this output? Good luck, everybody. All right, there's a few questions in the queue. I'm just going to address those really quickly. There was a few questions regarding some technical things with privilege level 5 and so forth and security levels. If you have a minute right after this live stream, join me in Discord. On my Discord server, there's a link in the description, and we'll be in the CCNA voice room, and you can just ask that question verbally, and we can just take care of it right there. Be happy to. Another question was, Thomas is asking, hey, Keith, who did you see last night? Bill Burr. Oh, it was the funniest thing ever. It was one of his first coming back concerts since the crisis. So he's back. All right, which are true based on this config? Let's take a look real quick. A little bit of a dicey question, but one worth looking at. So this access list 1, which says permit anything starting with 10. We don't care about the last 3 octets because the wildcard bits say we only care about that first octet. So an access list is only an identifier for stuff, and then just how you use it, like for filtering or for an access class or access group or a QoS, etc. So then we're going to line VTY 0 through 4, which is the first 5 VTY lines. We're going to configure them all at once. That's what that says. And we're applying that access control list as an access class, as a filter inbound. What that basically says is that anybody trying to come in to VTY lines 0 through 4, they're only going to be allowed if their source IP address is 10 dot something. All right, and let's see what else is true about this. Oh, and then this guy right here at the bottom, like almost an afterthought, transport input SSH. That, by default, it's allowing multiple transports in, including Telnet. But if you specify explicitly transport input SSH, that says, well, everybody else is denied. So effectively, we're only allowing SSH at all, and we're only allowing it from a source address, like an admin coming from the 10 something address. So why is this? Why is red true then? Well, it restricts inbound Telnet from 20, the 20 network, and every other network, because we're not allowing Telnet at all. It's restricting it from every subnet. So that was a little bit of a distractor, but absolutely true. And then everybody did great on this. It allows SSH, but not Telnet. Fantastic. And then yellow restricts inbound SSH from the 10 space. All right, great work, everybody. Here we go. Continuing on. Let's see who's in first place so far. Polite Wallaby. It pays to be polite. All right, and it pays to be here. Thanks for being here, by the way. We're like a third of the way through. For console port access, line console 0, which of the following are true for the authentication? All right, for console port access, which are true for the authentication? And let me take a peek at the output and just think it through. This is exactly what I would do in an exam environment as well. I would just say, okay, what's being asked and what is being shown. So for console, I'm just going to go through it real quick, just high level. So AAA new model enables it changes the rules for authentication, authorization, and accounting. It includes the ability to create method lists. So AAA authentication login default, right there, that's a method list that applies to logins, like V2I logins, and it is a special method list called default. And we can create other ones, but this one's called default. And when this is used, it's going to check with a TACACS server first for authentication if it's used. And then if it can't find that username or can't reach a TACACS server, it'll then use local, which means local database, which we discussed earlier. Okay, then the next line is a separate method list, AAA authentication login. So these are both method lists, but this one is a custom one called VTY. It's uppercase, and it is case sensitive when you go to apply it. And it says, if I'm called upon, if this method list called VTY is called upon, use the local database. Okay, well, we have a username called admin in the local database right there. And then the question is about console port access. So all this down here, don't care about the VTY lines. We only care about the console port. And privilege level 15. There we go. So anybody who connects successfully on the console 0, line console 0, will be in privilege mode. Perfect, because of that command. And then password conpass. Well, because there is not a method list specified on the line console 0, the default is going to be used, which is going to attempt TACACS first if there's one configured and reachable for that username. And if it can't be discovered, it'll then go to local, which makes this guy also valid. So that's why red and blue are correct. So the password of line pass is not even on the console port, so that's out. And the password of ConPass, yeah, AAA new model messed us up there. So if there was no AAA new model and we had login, and this password was there, that would actually be used for this login. But because AAA new model is there, it's now using the method list, including the default for login, which we configured right there. Okay, that's a little bit trickier. I will totally admit that, but certainly well within the scope of CCNA. Great job. Appreciate you being here. And let's use on top. Royal Crab. Doot, doot. And we have Dynamic Eagle, Helpful Sloth, yes, Cute Fox, and Great Gazelle in the leaderboard. And we've got about halfway to go. Here we go. How can you verify if a user is connected specifically using SSH? Because people could connect with like Telnet or SSH. How do you know if they're connected with SSH? All right, show SSH indeed. Let me see if I have a quick example of that. One of my techniques that I use quite frequently when I'm learning something new or studying something is I'll just lab it up. And Packet Tracer, which is free from Cisco, you just go to netacad.com, sign up for a free account, get a free copy of Packet Tracer. It's wonderful. So on R1 here, let's just make sure that it's set up for SSH. We'll do a show run. Actually, I'm going to do a show. Yeah, I need to see a lot of stuff. So there's AAA authentication set up, and there's an access list. Great. So let's go down to the VTY lines. And yeah, let me just do a quick test here. So from laptop 1, let's hit the up arrow key. We'll telnet to 10. Oh, it's not allowing me to telnet, and that's probably because I have on the VTY lines, I've got this option right here, transport input SSH, which says, sorry, no telnet allowed today, not here. And then I also got an access class, which if we look at that access list, it's only allowing people coming in from the source address of 10. And my laptop is on 10, so that's okay. I do an IP config. And sure enough, we're sourcing it from the 10 network. Okay, and then we'll do an SSH with that command, SSH-L, which means login. Then the username we want to log in as, we'll press enter, and then we'll type in the password, which I hope is that, which it is, yay. If we do a show SSH, that indeed shows us how people are connected. So this shows us that I've got a user called admin who's connected with SSH. And if we do a who, that's not supported in Packet Tracer, but that, let's do a show users. It's the same command. But a show users will show us who's connected, but it won't show us the technology they're using to connect. So currently I'm connected using SSH, and I'm coming in logically on line VTY0. And the 1.99, not my fault, but what that means is it supports it supports multiple versions of SSH, like version 1, version 2. If you wanted to lock it down, you could do I don't have it. Let's go to the console. If we wanted to lock it down here on R1, we could go ahead and, there's my authentication method. I've got debugging enabled right there. So when we just logged in, it shows the method list called VTY, and that's due to this, and that came up on the screen because of the debugging I have in place. But if we did this, config T and IP SSH version 2, then you can go ahead and promote everybody. Hopefully, we'll get everybody using version 2, which is a little bit more secure. Either way, I'm nitpicking now, but I would lab this stuff up. If you have questions about the technology and you're studying something, lab it up, lab it up. That's the mantra we should be singing to help make sure we're comfortable with the technology. That's what I do. I lab stuff up all the time, including when I'm preparing for a quiz like this one. Like this morning, I was putting these questions together, reviewing some that I've recycled. I was putting some new ones in, and then I labbed it up just to make sure that I was correct. So if a double here's the scoop. So if a double CCIE can lab stuff up in Packet Tracer just to confirm what they think is true, you can too. It's free and it's easy. So go for it whenever you're studying. All right, here we go. Moving on. This is question 5 of 8. What is the best practice for users and their passwords? I'm looking for a single best answer. And if you disagree, I need you to come on board with the rest of the group and choose the best option for password management. Yeah, it's true. You should never use your birth date or other information like that could be looked up. But the best option is to use a password manager. Do yourself a huge favor, and that is get yourself, and they have free versions, and then there's some very low-cost versions, which are fantastic. I have a family version of the one I bought because they gave a discount. It's like $20 US a year or something like that. Not very crazy, but it's going to save you. So as we're moving more to multi-factor authentication and additional attacks that are happening all the time, even if you're not really a target, like, they wouldn't want anything from me. Well, identity theft is a real thing. And so anyway, using a good password manager, and I would just say Google password managers and see what other people are using and recommending. I've got a couple personal favorites that I like to use, but any of the mainstream ones are going to be great. And if the argument, I'm going to talk to probably 2 people in this crowd. How many? We have like 155 people right now. I'm going to talk to like the 1 or 2 people who are saying, password managers are going to steal all your passwords. Trust me, you need to use a password manager. There's not a better way of doing it. I mean, there's no way we can remember different passphrases for all these different sites and change them and keep them modified. So a password manager will help keep you an encrypted copy where no one knows they accept you with a master passphrase. And because you don't have to type it in every time, you're going to save somebody looking over his shoulder, or keystroke logger it's going to help mitigate that. And it can do exercises to go through your entire password list and say, where are your weak sites? Where are your weak passwords? And encourage you to fix them. So that's what I'd recommend doing. If you're not using a password manager yet, I would strongly encourage you to start. Don't try to convert everything at once, because that sometimes is a pain. Also, don't rush things. Don't I need to change 28 passwords right now. Take some time. Don't rush it, because if you rush it and you miss one up, nowadays, bigger companies that really care about security, they will lock you out. Like you do a password change and you forget what the password is, or something goes wrong, and it might take you 24 hours or 3 days to get a reset, because the company that you're resetting the password with or for, they want to make sure it's really you. And so just be careful, take it slow. It's not a rush yet, but I would say it's a good goal for the year. Whatever calendar year this is that you're watching this video, if you're live right now, by the end of this year, I'd like you to think about managing and migrating all your passwords over to a password manager. You'll thank me. And there's only 2 types of people when it comes to being hacked and compromised. People who have been compromised or hacked, and people who will be compromised or hacked. So I want you to be one of those people who is prepared and have a better defense in place with a good password manager. All right, my public service announcement is over, and let's move on. Question 6 of 8, here it is. Which of the following is true for an SSH login? Based on this config. All right. Well, we have some people on green, which is a great thing. And we've got a lot of people I got with blue. Let me see what I did there. What did I do? It's probably my fault. Let's go ahead. It is my fault. I wrote all these questions. Okay. Which of the following is true for an SSH login? Let's see. The password of line pass is used. So because we have, this is very similar to a config we had earlier, because we have AAA new model and we have a method list called VTY, for login authentication that's used the local database, and that happens to be applied to the VTY lines, that means that we are going to use the local database for authentication. So we're not using the line password. Even though it's there, I see it, we're not using it. And then the local database is used because that method list called VTY, which calls on the local database, is being applied on this VTY line. So when the user logs in, it's going to look at the local database for authentication. And AAA authentication login that default, bummer. The default is here. So if there wasn't a method list specified on the VTY lines, the default method list would take over. But because there is a method list specified, that's the one that's being used. All right, there was another question or two regarding crypto and writing things down. And if you want to elaborate on that, if you have questions about that, I'd be happy to discuss that on Discord right after this live stream. Okay, fantastic for the 27 correct votes, and for everybody else who learned something right now, also fantastic. I also made that question intentionally similar to another question. Just every time you get a question, look at it and think it through. Also, if you're studying, you might say to yourself, I don't understand this at all, and set up a session for yourself to study it. 35 minutes, 45 minutes, a few times a week, targeting what you want to study, and then as you study it, move on, then study the next topic. All right, Dynamic Eagle with almost 8,500 points. We have 2 questions to go. Here is question number 7, the penultimate question. It is multiple select, which are true based on this config. Thanks, Umair. And Blendinator, you know me well. There definitely is some sneaky angles in many of these questions. But the intent is always help the learner understand how it works. That's my overarching goal for CCNA candidates. Help them learn. All right, I got a few on green, but all the others are true. So let's take a look real quick. Oh, wow, so small. Clear that off. All right, let me get a pen out that we can see. How about that one? All right. So we're on the VTY lines. So we're configuring as a group lines VTY 0. I think I can make that bigger. Let me see if I can make that bigger. Hold on a second. Does that work? Yeah, that works. A little bit better. Okay, lines VTY 0 through 4. And the exec timeout says is for idle. So let's imagine you have a session open. It's going to be SSH because Telnet's being blocked. But if you have an SSH session open and you don't actually do anything for 60 minutes, that's what the exec timeout is, it's going to time you out. And as a result, you're going to have to re-authenticate. And then we have a password called line pass. You know, that's interesting right there. But it's not being used because I've got login authentication VTY, which is a method list, which implies that elsewhere in the config, AAA new model is being used. So whatever that VTY method list is specifying, TACAX or local or radius or whatever it specifies as far as the authentication mechanism for login, that's what's going to be called on here. And then transport input SSH excludes everything else except for SSH for login for those 5 VTY lines. So AAA new model is in use, because otherwise we couldn't have a method list there. This could be a router or a switch. True, true, true. And some devices have like lines 0 all the way through hundreds. Depends on your version. And like on switches, sometimes they go 0 through 15. 0 through 15 by default. Some routers go 0 through 4 by default, but you can still, on many routers, increase that. So you just say line VTY 0 through 100, for example. And if your iOS supports it, you'll now have 101 lines. Because 0 through 100 is 101. I love 0. Love 0. Okay. And then Telnet is denied because of that. And then the max login time, there's no specification for that here in the config. So that's why that one's not true. Okay. We are, oops, that's the wrong button. All right. Let's continue on here. Ooh, so many buttons. It's good to have you here today. Let me clear that off. And here we go. I think we have one more question. Are you excited? I'm excited. And let's see who's on top. Helpful sloth. I love sloths. My wife and I, many years ago, came up with a sloth theme because I really enjoy sloths. I do. What can I say? I think I have one behind me I can show you. Let's see here. Yeah. Oh, he's heading. There we go. Better view. Right there. Mr. Sloth. Now, what he's doing right now, just so you know, Mr. Sloth is sitting in front of a rack of 4 servers because when they're all on, it's a little loud. Even with technology and canceling systems for noise, he's sitting in front of a blanket that's folded like 5 times in front of those racks just to help abate a little bit of noise so it doesn't make it into my recordings. And that's what he's doing at the moment. So when I'm not using all 4, sometimes like just one, I'll go ahead and move him around. But all right, I'm so happy for you, Helpful Sloth. Way to go. Let's go ahead and take the last question. And the last question is this. And then right after, we'll jump in Discord. If you have questions about these questions or you want to chat, I'm here for you. We'll do it in Discord right after. What login methods can this device support? A little over a minute left on the clock. Take your time. But if you answer correctly faster, you get more points. And Dan, I have not yet tried the NVIDIA broadcast for the filtering. So I should give that a shot. I have everything set up and dialed in. So I'm just, when I'm in the middle of a course at CBT Nuggets and I'm just making a lot of great progress, I don't like to change many things, but that's on my list. So Blendinator, aka Dan, thank you very much for the tip and the reminder. Flying Scotsman is asking, when are you doing more subnetting? On my YouTube channel, I've got 11 videos in a playlist called Subnet Saturdays. I made them over 11 Saturdays. And that is doing all the basics of subnetting. As far as a quiz, I'll probably do another quiz on subnetting here in the next month or two. But every Sunday we'll have a quiz, and I'll make sure we get subnetting back in the rotation. Okay, what login methods can this device support? All of them. Sometimes I do that. I throw all of them in there. And let's just take a peek and confirm why that's true. And let me bring up my pen. And let me get rid of my pen. And let me bring up show media, and let me bring up my pen. Okay. Wow. So show versions, like when I see something like this, everybody, I think, whoa, it's just so much information. But this is what do we know about this? This is a Cisco iOS software. That's the model. It's Universal K9 version this is right from Packet Tracer, by the way. This is all simulation in Packet Tracer, but it does a great simulation. So most Cisco devices, routers and multi-layer switches, they've got line console 0. That's how you initially connect to them and boot them if you don't have an IP address involved. And then most Cisco devices support SSH access on the VTY lines, 0 through 4, or maybe more, depending on the device. Most devices from Cisco support Telnet, also on the same VTY lines. And then what did we get? Oh, what did we not answer as best? Line, yeah, that's a little bit tricky. Let's go ahead and take a look at that for one more moment here. So most routers have an auxiliary port, AUX 0. And you might say, well, I've never used that. And you wouldn't be alone. A lot of people don't use it. But you have a console port, console 0. These are both lines. And if you have a device that has an auxiliary port, the biggest difference between the console port and the auxiliary port is that while the system is booting up, it's spitting out data to the console port. And the auxiliary port isn't fully ready to go until the system is booted. So if you need to see the boot messages as they're coming up, you want to be on the console port, but you could. If you want, and I've done this in production where I needed access to a device and they didn't protect it well. And I wasn't an attacker, I was a consultant, but I just connected the auxiliary port and boom, no authentication required. It was amazing. So we don't want to forget about the auxiliary port from a security perspective, because any type of precautions you're taking on the console port, you'd also want to take on the auxiliary port, which is, well, I should say port. It's line console 0 or line AUX 0 to do that. Okay, the other one that's tricky, the blue one, which is this column right here, the reason that's a little tricky is because it's not super obvious. And let me tell you why this device, what is blue? Give me a second here. Oh, I just did auxiliary 0. Let me talk about SSH for a moment. Sometimes we take SSH for granted. I know I do. The fact that it's a secure mechanism and a few of the details regarding SSH, you bring back my pen, is that it uses TCP, and the server is using the well-known port of TCP port 22. And so when we connect over, so this is our router. And I drew a router wrong most of my life. I used to always draw it like this. Hey, there's a router. But, the actual icon is like this. But anyway, I still draw it like this because it looks more like a router. Anyway, long story short, if we want SSH to work on this device, whether it's a multi-layer switch or whether it's a router or whether it's a layer 2 switch that supports SSH, we'd want to specify the domain name. And for the CCNA level, that is an important thing to be aware of. So we create the domain name or specify the domain name, and then we also we create the keys with crypto key generate RSA to create the public-private key pairs that are used as part of SSH. And then we could go in and do IP SSH version 2. We don't have to do that, but if you want to, you can. So it's not that part is optional, but the keys aren't optional. And then also, as far as logging in, you need to go to the line, like VTY line 0 through 4, and say login local, or use AAA authentication and then create a method list or a default method list that's specifying how you log in. Now, the thing is that this is a lot of detail, right? And Cisco wants you to know it. Not going to pull any punches here. They expect you to know how to configure SSH support on a Cisco router. And the best way, I'm talking about the absolute best way of getting it done, is to lab it up. And Packet Tracer supports all of it for free. Just lab it up. Just lab it up, please. So, so login local or AAA method list. I would start slow, start small, and then if you want to add AAA later, you can. But just do login local, and then create a local user so you can log in with that user on the VTY lines. Now, this is the part one of the reasons I created this question, I wanted to point out this bad boy right here. K9. Now, a K9 could represent a type of, could represent dog, right? A K9, woof, 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 a dog. Or it could represent some encryption capabilities on the iOS. So if you had an image that said K8 and an image that said K9, and you're thinking, why, this one with the K8 image, it doesn't support SSH. It's because it probably doesn't have the cryptography support. It's a fancy way for saying, encryption stuff that the K9 image has. And so the reason that this answer right here, yellow, is probably true for this router is because the image is a K9 image, meaning it has encryption support. Also, that deals with where it can be exported to and all that good stuff. So that's also a consideration when working with iOS images around the planet, is that not every location, and Cisco is a U.S. company, so they are under the guidelines and restrictions and compliance with the United States government. So they are not allowed to export certain levels of cryptography and options to implement cryptography to certain countries or certain locations. I don't know all the details on that, but there are some rules about that which people have to follow when they're working those kind of images. So K9, we would have to take consideration of that as far as, can we export this? Can we use it in, a city or country or state where exporting of cryptography software is not legal by the country that's creating it. All right, I'm going to go ahead and clear that off. And let's take a look at the winners board here. You're all winners because you're here. Logging on with Cisco. This is Dave's recommendation. He's one of our fantastic mods on Discord. Thank you, David, for the recommendation. Thank you, Solid Shadow, and also Blendinator for the super stickers. And the winner, Helpful Sloth. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. All right, I've had a good time. If you want to keep this party rocking, I'm going to jump into the Discord server. There's a link. Oh, actually, let me get some feedback from you too. So here are the toughest questions. 5 out of 8 were pretty tough as a whole. And let me go ahead and get some feedback. So if you give me some feedback, that'd be awesome. Right after this, in a few moments, we'll jump over to the Discord server. There's a link, an invite. It's free in the video description. We'll be in the CCNA voice room. If you have questions about any of these questions that we went through today, please feel free to bring them. I'll have Kahoot, which is the testing engine I use. I'll have that ready and available so we can go and look at the details. So if you have a few minutes and you have some questions about the questions that we just looked at, or if you want to argue, one thing I love about technical things is that there's not, there's room for discussion. But one of the things I love about being an IT guy, the OG of IT, is that, binary ones and zeros, they're ones or zeros. And as far as how to do something or how it works, there's usually, one specific answer that is correct and others that aren't. And when it comes to is this going to work or is that not going to work? The secret that I use, that I would like you to use also, is to lab it up and see whether or not it works. All right. So let me go ahead and let me go to full screen for a moment. There we go. Good, this camera. I'm going to give this camera a few moments. Hey, thanks for joining me today for this live quiz. If you are new to the channel, welcome. My name is Keith Barker. I'm a double CCIE. What that means is I met somebody 2 days ago. I was helping somebody move, and a neighbor came up and said, we got chatting. He's a big Star Trek enthusiast, and his name is Dave. And we got chatting. He goes, yeah, before I moved here, I was studying my Cisco certification. And I said, Cisco, that's really great. What are you studying? And then I told him that it was a double CCIE, and he almost fell over. I said, most people, outside of the IT world, they don't know what that is. It's just a bunch of letters. But CCIE basically means you have somebody who just won't give up. That's really what it means. They're studying, they get smacked down, they keep on studying, they keep on studying. That's what a CCIE means. It means somebody's a little bit off the center because they just won't give up. And that's the secret to getting a CCIA. It's also not a bad thing for a CCNA. If you have people in your life that are saying, yeah, you can't do it, I would like you to do me a favor. Do yourself a favor. Quietly, just be kind to everybody, but quietly say, okay, I'm doing this. And just get it done. and you don't even make it, no fanfare. Like I have people that come to me all the time and say, Keith, how did you get your, blah, 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 certifications and this experience with SD-WAN and, Cisco and Palo Alto and Checkpoint and, all these things. One day at a time. That's how I do it. One day at a time. I get some documentation. I watch a few videos. I lab it up whenever I can. And then I just increase and, learn. You know how many babies were born that knew subnetting? 0. The doctor never had a baby and said, well, this kid, they don't hold babies like that, right? They don't. But anyway, this baby is going to be a network engineer. They don't know that. They don't know anything. I mean, they know it's a baby and they know medical stuff, but they don't know the future of that child. And so my goal for you is to have the future that you want to go towards. And in IT and in life, it doesn't always pan out exactly like you want it to. However, I can tell you this. The harder you are consistently going in the direction you want to go, the better off you're going to be. And when you have pitfalls that come up, just keep on going. And that's it. That's it. So I won't bore you with all the nitty-gritty details. But if you want to join me right after, in a few moments, I'm going to close this stream off. If you have questions for me, or if you want to chat, the Discord server will be in the CCNA voice room. It's just open. There's not really an agenda. So if you want to ask a question, just unmute it. It's going to be primarily focused on CCNA-related topics. So I'd like to keep that focus if we can. And I look forward to seeing you. So set your schedules, 10 o'clock Saturday, every 10 a.m. Saturday Pacific time for my office hour on Discord. And then every Sunday at 11 a.m., including the 4th of July. Happy, for the United States folks, happy 4th. For everybody else in the world, I'm glad you're here. Happy studies. But every Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific time, we have a quiz. And then I also include either the live quiz, which I'm doing today. It's just going to stay on YouTube in my playlist for quizzes, or sometimes I do a little editing if I have a whole bunch of extra free time. So glad to have you here. I'll see you in Discord if you're able to. Otherwise, we'll catch you in the next event. Bye for now.